All right, here we go. It's our last panel of the day. Can you believe it? I've had such a good time with you today. I'm really sad to introduce the last panel, but it is going to be so great that it will make up for it. This is your Commander panel. So get ready. Past, present, future, multiplayer, Magic the Gathering, hosted by none other than Gavin Verhey. Have fun.
All right.
Hey everyone, how you doing out there?
Whoa, this seat kind of just sunk in. What just happened there?
Well, welcome to my living room, everybody. I've invited a few friends to hang out with us. Thank you all so much for coming out to hear about Commander. So, a few things. First of all, who out there likes Commander? Well, you have found the right panel. Who out there likes preview cards? Commander and preview cards are about the same level. Honestly, it's pretty good for Commander, I gotta say. It's a close battle. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about the past, the present, and the future of Commander. And at the end, we're gonna take your questions. So be thinking during the panel of what questions you have for these fine individuals. My name is Gavin Verhey. I'm a principal game designer on Magic the Gathering. So I help design what these wild cardboard squares do. But I work a lot in the Commander format these days, helping design what new Commander cards are coming out with. In fact, I helped the design, I was the lead designer for the Brothers War Commander decks, which many of you might have seen me play on Friday on game nights where I won, just saying. What I want to do now is I want to turn over to some of these people to introduce who they are. So we'll kick it off right here with Sheldon Menery. Tell us a bit about yourself, Sheldon.
Hi, I'm Sheldon Menery. I am a trophy husband and sometimes writer. I'm also on the Commander Rules Committee, and that's kind of all I do. I just write and play games.
A good gig if you can get it, that's for sure. Yeah, clap for Sheldon, absolutely. And for playing games.
Yeah.
I love playing games.
Yeah.
Next up is Gavin Duggan. How can I help you, Gavin? Tell me what you do here.
Hey everyone, my name is Gavin Duggan. I'm on the Rules Committee. I'm a father and a dad. I also work as an artificial intelligence researcher for the secret projects branch of Alphabet.
There are many secrets that I have, many secrets that you have. Neither of us can share them with each other. So here we are. All right, next up is Olivia. Olivia, introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Olivia Gobert-Hicks. I am one of the newest members of the Rules Committee, along with Jim LePage. And yeah, I make Commander content, I cosplay, my day job is making jewelry, and happy to be here.
You might have seen her on the floor today as Professor Onyx. You were over, yeah. Yeah, clap for Olivia, everybody.
So good, so good.
You might have seen her on the floor as Professor Onyx, who visited Liliana's home over there, so absolutely fantastic. And then finally, last but certainly not least, DeQuan Watson.
Hey, so I'm DeQuan. A bunch of you might see me on the internet as Power Dragon. I make content all the time. That's my full-time job these days. But I've been playing Commander forever and got to be part of the Commander Advisory Group recently. I guess second newest, technically.
Yeah.
There's a tie, I guess, 'cause there was two of y'all. But technically, I'm the second newest. So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun today and just kind of fill y'all in on what we're doing.
So, yeah, clap for DeQuan. Absolutely. I love when we have an audience that wants to clap for everything. This gets me excited. So, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Everyone else in this hall should be very envious they're not here right now. Okay, so what I want to do is talk about the past, present, and future of Commander. Let's start with things in the proper order with the past. So let's talk about how these fine folks got into Commander and a bit of the history of the format. Sheldon, it seems like a fine place to start. Tell us about how you got started in Commander.
By creating the format. So I took the seed of an idea. You know, I didn't do this alone. I took the seed of an idea from one of my friends in my gaming group in Alaska named Adam Staley, who presented it us. And it's likely that Adam was also influenced by an article in a Duelist by a fellow named Jose Garcia. And from there, it was the development of the format. What Adam showed me was a very sort of proto-EDH. It was very much a very seed of an idea with only 3 rules. And with my knowledge of Magic and formats, since I was already a high-level judge at the time, I knew what was going to fly, what wasn't going to fly. So I changed a number of things and then sort of presented it to the world in 2004 in an article on Star City Games, and from there, We had a Magic World Champion at the Magic World Championships. We had this 11-player multiplayer game, and it was great. Introduced it to the judge program, and that was, as they say, is that.
I remember hearing whispers at Pro Tours. You'd walk around, have you tried Commander? Have you tried Commander? And after hours, folks would be slinging decks. I remember in the airport once I was waiting for something. They're like, hey, do you have a Commander deck? I want to play against you. And that's where I knew. That's how I knew it was really taking off. But of course, it took a group of people to play with. And so, Gavin, talk about your role there.
So yeah, I was a level 3 judge at the time on the Pro Tour, and ran into it via Duncan McGregor, former Rules Committee member, one of the best people ever.
Yeah.
And we were using it for learning, for teaching, for socializing. And this is sort of early mid-internet, and things were cropping into websites. And I was like, well, this needs a website. So went to Sheldon and was like, hey, we should organize this, learn from some of the other casual formats like 5-color, put our rules online, start organizing, find some good minds, people to attract. So that was kind of my knowledge base that I could contribute. And then from there, we sort of shored it up for a little while, where we took some of the rules and said, okay, let's make it so people can play their commander more than once. Well, okay, that's maybe a bit powerful. Commander tax and some of these proto rules early on, and sort of by writing things down, they become real. And that was the next generation.
Do you remember the Raphaelos rule?
Yes, it used to be that all commanders cost at least 6. There was like a hexasphere.
Yeah.
Because man, Raphaelos on turn 2 every game is not a good format.
Turns out it's a lot easier to ban Raphaelos than not have that problem.
And then change the rules of format, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Man, imagine if all your commanders had to cost 6 to cast. You would never cast your commanders.
Yeah.
Olivia, okay, so that's awesome. This is a bit of a background of the story here from these two. Olivia, how did you get into Commander? Because you came a little bit later, I think.
I did. My first ever game of any kind of Magic the Gathering was a, 2014. I was in a backyard barbecue with my friends that had finally bullied me into playing a game. It was an 8-person, 2-headed giant game of Commander.
Oh my goodness.
And it was the best thing ever. I had one of my friends sitting next to me explaining how the game worked, like why you'd want to play things at certain times, and just kind of walking me through it. And the entire experience was sitting around a table with my best friends, playing a game, eating good food, and making this, great set of memories. So I was completely hooked after that. Pledged, of course, that I would never pay something like $10 for a card. That went out the window. And I've been playing ever since. It's my introduction to Magic. It is, I went back to Seattle after that experience and was talking with my then husband and saying, oh yeah, I finally learned how to play Magic, and whip out this 100-card deck, and he's like, that's not Magic. Oh, but wait, it is. So I've been playing Commander ever since. That's my window to this world, and just.
But you won because now he plays Commander.
You're absolutely right.
Some say that backyard barbecue 2-headed giant game is going on to this day.
Yeah.
It's still happening out there somewhere, I'm sure. 2-headed giant Commander fun.
Things
does
have
take
not
some
yet
time.
resolved. It's true.
It's true. All right, DeQuan, talk to me about you.
Yeah, mine's a bit different because at the time I was running a game store and running events, and I happened to also be being, I guess you'd call it a semi-competitive player, and that's how I actually met Sheldon, I don't know, 20-some years ago.
Yeah.
And I kind of had heard the rumblings, like Gavin was saying about, hey, what's this Elder Dragon Highlander thing, right? It wasn't even Commander at the time. And I was like, oh, this sounds neat, and started picking it up, something I could bring to my store and give people another option to play that maybe weren't super competitive minded. And I've been kind of stuck in it ever since. And for me, it's been cool because it's a very casual approach when I want to get away from doing 60 card and have something fun and different. So that was kind of like, all right, this is neat. I'm going to have this deck on the side. I have something to do. And then I just watched it just grow and grow, and it's just been crazy ever since. So yeah, I got to commit from almost like a different retail purpose, to give something different to my community and to my customers more than anything else. And now it's something I'm just full-fledged into.
Yeah, it was something that Gavin touched on. As high-level judges, you're managing judge staffs, you're managing people. And there was just this point where I really wanted Pro Tour judges to have something to decompress with. Because judging at the Pro Tour is as much or more pressure. I mean, as a floor judge, right?
Yeah, you get it wrong, you cost other people thousands of dollars. That's not cool.
It has a lot of pressure attached to it. And I really wanted them to have a thing they could do after the event to sit around, chat with their friends, have a drink, and not be too worried about what the thing was in front of them, but the it was important that the people were around them. And we had talked about it and was like, yeah, let's just see how this works. And it became a thing that where we sort of developed, this is a social format first, a mechanical format second, and then go from there.
You know, it's another rule that's fallen by the wayside since then. It used to be that only one person could use any given legend in the world. There was a global registry that, like, I was the only person with an Azami deck. Nobody else could play Azami. And at some point that fell down because it was not. There are a lot of legends.
I imagine it's like, I want to play Edgar Markov or whatever. Got to track down the one guy in the world who's like registered Edgar Markov. Like, hey, can you swap with me? So it's a whole situation. So Olivia, one thing I want to touch on. So you've only ever lived in a post-Commander world, basically, right?
Yeah.
What is that like?
I mean, it's interesting because I don't know what it was ever like before. So for me, it's normal. Right. There's always been Commander product. There have always been pre-cons. There have always been, the considerations of, well, okay, this card may not work like this, but with these cards that were never together with it in Standard that completely existed in a different time frame, it's actually really fun and cool. So for me, it's very interesting to hear about the pre-Commander world. It's like, really, this is fascinating. Like, there was only those ways to play Magic.
How many people out there have only ever played since Commander started? That's a good chunk of the audience.
Okay, there's a lot. Yeah.
The post-Commander world is real. Speaking, we start with the past. You know what else is happening in the past? The Brothers War, everybody. That's right. Smooth segue.
Beautiful trick.
Let's talk about a couple preview cards, shall we? Olivia, why don't we bring our first preview card up here? Up on the screen.
Oh, behind us?
It's right in front of you.
Oh, we have right here.
Actually, here we go. DeQuan, tell us about the Stasis Coffin.
Yeah, so the Stasis Coffin. It's a 3 colorless, because, it's an artifact. Legendary, though, so you only get the 1. But you pay 2 and tap it, exile it, and you gain protection from everything until your next turn. Which is kind of like Teferi's protection, but anybody can play it now, which I expect we're going to see a whole hell of a lot of this card at our tables, because this card is awesome.
Fortunately, finding artifacts is pretty easy too, so get this in your deck, tutor for it. Pretty nice. And then Olivia, why don't you walk us through our next card here?
I get a Thopter. We've got Liberator, Urza's Battle Thopter, another 3-cost artifact, legendary artifact creature, Thopter. Flash and flying. You can cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Like, you guys couldn't have given this card to a better person. This is all about me. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than Liberator Urza's Battle Thopter's power, you can put a +1 counter on Liberator.
And a legendary artifact creature, so you can use this as your commander, build an artifact deck, right? A lot of people.
Yeah, for the people that have been looking for legendary Thopters, there you go.
It's me. It's for me.
This is legendary Thopter time, everybody. Well, awesome. You'll also know it's like, looks like it's kind of a vehicle, but we didn't do vehicles in this set. Throwback to the past, so different kind of thing here. It's Urza's Battle Thopter, Liberator. So cool. All right, everyone, let's go on to the next section here. Let's talk about the function of the Rules Committee and the CAG. Yeah. So I'm going to start with a little bit, kicking over to Gavin, about kind of what you think the function and the purpose of the Rules Committee is. Like, how do you envision it? Haven't been on for so long.
One of the best ways to define what the RC is and what the CAG is what it's not. It's not an enforcement branch. Okay? We don't have people that are going to come and bust through your wall Kool-Aid style and tell you what you have to do. What we are here for is to give examples, to set examples, to share what we've learned, to share what we've been able to learn from the community about what makes good games, what's fun, what's funny, what's not, what's surprisingly unfunny. Because if you look at the ban list, for example, there's a lot of cards on there that, even if they're not the most powerful cards, are the ones that will surprise you. You'll think they're cool. They're not. So that's what we're here for more than anything, is to provide an example, is to sort of say, hey, here's a banner. We're going to go and play some great games. If y'all want to come with us on this journey, tally-ho. And that's our vision.
Imagine you have a bit to say as well, Sheldon.
One or two things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really has always been this is what we're going to do, we hope you come along, right? We never, even with a ban list or suggested ways of playing, it's not, we think this is the only good way to play Magic, because like all forms of playing, like all power levels are valid. This is the one that we think has the best chance of doing the most for the largest number of people. And the largest number of the fans of the format. The perfect Commander game the one that we try to promote is the one where everybody does something, something epic happens, and somebody eventually wins. And it doesn't matter who wins. Like, some of our best memories of Commander games have been from games that we lost. The time that one of my friends attacked me with a 2/2 and his Riku, I'm like, well, I want to kill that. It was a acidic slime. It's like, I want to kill his acidic slime because I'm going to reanimate it and do stuff. And kill the acidic slime, take the 2 from Riku. And it was like, Mercadia's downfall, copy it again, kill you.
Hands if you know what Mercadia's downfall does. Anyone out there know Mercadia's downfall? Yeah, almost no hands from the audience know what this card does.
It gives the creature +X/+0 based on the number of non-basic lands the defending player has.
Pretty sweet card.
So I was like, hello.
Hidden gem of Commander, Mercadia's downfall.
Yeah.
Go find
So it's really what we really do is, like Gavin said, sort of plant the flag, and this is the way that we found that a lot of people, because I really never would have imagined that our message would have resonated so strongly with the number of people that it had. I thought it would be our sort of niche little format with our judge friends after the Pro Tour, and maybe some pro players had got interested, and some of the staff had got interested, but we hit the gas pedal at some point, and the message of Commander, again, that we're a social format and we want to bring everybody in. It's important, the experience that the other 3 people at the table have as well, and we're all in it together. It's more like quite honestly, it's more like a D&D game than any Magic format, right? So when the AFR cards came out, we doubled down on it.
One of the most important discoveries ever was a particular member of Wizards of the Coast playing a game with us at a Pro Tour and being like, this isn't Magic, this is Dungeons and Dragons. You're storytelling. Yeah, you're right.
So that message resonated with orders of magnitude more people than we ever expected it would. And I mean, why a lot of you are here, where we have Command Fest. The morning, I'll tell a brief story. The morning of the first Command Fest in Seattle, I'd gotten there early, set up the play, got on the table, and I had my stuff out. And about an hour after the doors opened, I needed to stretch my back, and I stood up, and I looked around, and there was this ocean of people. There were like 1,100 people playing Commander, and I would have never imagined, back then, would have never imagined a world where there were 1,100 players in the world in our little format that could. We didn't set out to conquer the world,
but you kind of did.
We sure did.
So talk to us a little bit about the creation of the CAG. So speaking of conquering the world, you have the rules committee, a tight group of people. Also, you wanted to expand it a little bit. And how did the CAG come to be? What's the story there?
It was an idea that came up in my living room because Scott Larrabee and Toby Elliott, the other 2 earlier members of the rules committee, were visiting me, and we were bringing Gavin in on a Zoom call or whatever we did at the time to sort of have a quarterly meeting, and we talked about the idea of one of the long-term criticisms of the rules committee were that we were these sort of ivory tower figures and we were very, very distant, and I thought let's try to break those barriers down. I mean, we had for a long time traveled to events as high-level judges and staff, so we could get out and talk to people. But as the number of people playing Commander rose, our ability to get in a room with that many people declined, and of course, not all those people were coming to big Magic events. So we talked about the idea of bringing on some very smart people who also had audiences of their own, so we could get more two-way conversation between the rules committee and the fan base and the player base. And those original 6 people were all somebody that had a reach and then could come back to us.
There were a few people who were chosen primarily because of like their opinions, what they could see, not necessarily who so Ron Foster, brilliant mind, and perhaps more in contact with the Asian Magic playing community than anyone else we could talk to.
Right.
This is a part of the world we needed more visibility into. So again, designing the CAG for diversity of perspective and diversity of vision.
Yeah, Ron Foster is the most important person in Magic whose name you probably don't know.
Wow, that's a lofty claim there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks for talking about that. Let's hear about the CAG, though. So from DeQuan, I want to know what your perspective is like on the CAG.
I'm still new, really, relatively, to the whole life of this whole thing. But for me, it's important just because, like I kind of mentioned earlier, that whole casual aspect of things and bringing that perspective in, because it's very easy to get caught up in like, this card's so good and this thing's happening, we're building these decks with all these tutors. And it's like, yeah, but that's not really how people are playing at a lot of the local game stores. Like, we play different types of Magic. And I think it's been really cool to sometimes just be that voice, just like, I don't really see this card being a thing. And it's neat to just have that different perspective, because I think sometimes people that don't know have this idea that like we're kind of having these secret meetings, and there are secret meetings, by the way, but like nothing's really happening. We're just discussing things and just saying like, what's the health of stuff look like? But we all have different perspectives, and we're all bringing different opinions. And a lot of times we don't agree. We've had some heated Discord conversations.
That's the system working as designed.
Exactly.
By the way. We don't want a consensus opinion from the CAG. We want 13 different opinions, and they're all really smart people. So sometimes they will disagree.
And and sometimes you win them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes, a large percentage of the time, like I said, nothing happens. We just say, okay, we at least are aware of this, and it's something we can keep eyes on. And it's been really cool just to be part of that process and represent a different group and a different perspective, because I'm sure, like many of you know, most people play casually. A bunch of you aren't playing super competitive. Yeah, I see a lot of heads nodding, as I say that. So it's cool to just kind of be that voice for those people in the group. So I think it's been a little bit of a different experience, but it's been very cool, especially for me, because Commander is like my escapism. I do 60 card format competitively. I make content for 60 card format, and then I show up on other people's streams and stuff playing Commander, right? Like, that's what I do for fun. So it's been really, really neat to be part of that whole thing from that perspective.
Now, how does the communication happen? Like back and forth? How do you all stay in touch with each other?
It kind of depends. We might have a day where we see a lot of discussion online, right? And we're like, okay, well, is that what we're seeing? We had earlier this year where we all kind of went to different command fests, and we came back and said, okay, well, what were the impacts were you seeing? What notes did you take from the games you saw, right? We're observing things from a lot of different levels, because that's the only way we can do it, and it's been good having more people, because it's more eyes, it's more community. Even our communities are each going to see stuff differently and be driven to a certain thing. So it takes a lot of different perspectives and a lot of thought and a lot of conversation to keep things healthy, honestly.
Olivia, you're really unique, and you've lived in both worlds, right? You were on the CAG originally, and then recently you've been promoted, or perhaps we could say, to the Rules Committee. Hats off to Olivia for that.
Ascension.
Leveled up, if you will.
Leveled up, whatever nomenclature we choose to use.
Right.
It's an incredible. Welcome to the Rules Committee. Great to have you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your experience of being on the CAG and then over time making it to the Rules Committee. What your perspective on both the CAG was, which stands for Commander Advisory Group for those not in the know, as well as now that you're on the RC, what your initial feelings coming into that group are.
Right. So, I mean, to echo a lot of what DeQuan said about being on the CAG, all of us have our own communities, and those communities, all the people there have their own experiences and everything. So a big part of it was to not even distill it, but just try to best represent and communicate the diversity of experiences people are having in Commander. Like, a lot of times it's very easy to see, what's the discourse online, but there are a lot of Magic the Gathering players that do not live on Twitter, that do not live in YouTube comments, that go out, have fun at their LGS, and have fun at their kitchen tables, that don't constantly put something out there for us to know. So it does kind of do the, all right, let's build a network, let's build a web of getting this information, because maybe people that watch my stream that do play only in their LGS or do play with kitchen table friends have a very different experience. And now I get to ask them for their feedback. I get to help communicate that moving up the way. So it is good that in having the CAG let us reach out to people that may not just hear a question we post. Hey, what are you thinking about this? We now have people that can trickle that down. Moving to the RC has been very interesting because there's a lot of feedback and discussion and like communication of what's happening and what people are seeing. And then with the RC, it is very, how do we apply these kind of things moving forward? How do we best say, okay, well, we're hearing this feedback online, we're seeing this kind of play style from players that maybe don't contribute there. How do we all make this work? How do we communicate changes or philosophies or guidelines that we want to implement to all those players? How do we integrate that into best keeping the format healthy and moving it forward and letting this be something that remains accessible to people and remains fun for people? So it's been very interesting kind of seeing that blend, and then also working with Studio X, working with R&D, and saying, hey, here's an experience people are having. This has been really awesome, or we've been getting a lot of feedback that it's unfun. How can we make sure, everything stays moving forward, that people aren't having unfun experiences, or design spaces that are really good and getting a lot of engagement that people enjoy? How do we lean into that? So it's nice being able to kind of see how that feedback got taken and how it is actually applied.
Yeah, one of the things that we do a lot inside game design is we do talk with members of the rules committee to help get their opinions about things. We're trying out a wild new mechanic. If we want them to look at some upcoming cards and commander sets, we'll talk back and forth on things. And I know you've been recently reviewing some of our upcoming sets, so thank you very much for all your hard work on that, Olivia.
So many cards, no problem, my pleasure.
One of the things, too, I want to hit on that you mentioned is I don't think people realize how disconnected a bunch of people can be from what we see online, right? I've traveled to many game stores and talked to Commander players that don't even know what a game nights is, which I'm sure to y'all that are here sounds insane, but there's people that just don't know. The average player doesn't go put their deck list on EDH Rec or whatever. So even though we see it, that's not necessarily the lived experience for everybody that's actually playing Commander. So having that awareness is also important too.
It's really nice being able to go somewhere and people, you sit down for a game of Commander in LGS, nobody knows who you are because a lot of people don't. We aren't, we're important in that we are trying to help guide this format, but we're just another player at a table for most people, which is awesome because then we get their actual feedback, we get to see how they play. But the other thing too is that, to point off of that, it is really nice being able to, the point is completely gone because my brain just went blank. Anyway.
How about the preview cards?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's preview some cards. Yeah.
It's nice being able to just get the full experience and realize that there's so much happening that isn't talked about online. There are so many experiences that aren't happening there, and really being able to touch into that is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a wide variety of people that play Magic, and be able to hit as many different kinds as possible is so meaningful for the game, right? So, should we see some more preview cards?
Yeah, let's do it.
Preview cards? Preview cards. All right, well, here's our preview card. You need a lot of legendary creatures to play in Commander. Let's talk about this preview card, Takasa, Dig Site Mentor. Gavin, walk us through it.
So, Dig Site Mentor, legendary creature. Artificer, very important. Creatures you control have vigilance and tap to surveil 1. Remember, surveil puts them in the graveyard. And then you can pay Bant Ultimatum worth of mana, so 2 and a couple of green and a couple of white and a couple of blue. Exile it from your graveyard. So you need it to die first, leave it there, and get extra value. But if you do, you return any number of target artifact cards with total mana value 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield as a sorcery. Huge value engine. You've got your slow value early on, good body, good efficiency. The rate is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, also a known character, Takasa, is Urza and Mishra's mentor in the story, so cool to see her here. And you'll note Surveil there, as we talked about recently online, Surveil is becoming a mechanic we can use as we want to in sets, kind of like Scry. So you see it here in the Brothers War, keyworded onto Cosset Excitementer. Let's move on to our next preview card here. Sheldon, tell us about Loran of the Third Path, another story character finally realized in card form.
Right, Loran of the Third Path is a legendary creature, also a human artificer. We're probably going to see a few more of those. It has vigilance, and when Loran enters the battlefield, you destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment. And then tap, Loran is a little friendly. You and target opponent each draw a card. It's a 2/1, so it's not going to get into battle too often because you want to tap it to get to the card draw.
One of the fun things about Commander, of course, is that you can play some politics, right?
Yep.
And this card lets you do that in spades, which is a blast. Gives the white a bit of card draw, helps someone else out a little bit. Plenty of deals to be negotiated with Loran of the Third Path. Okay, so moving on to our next topic, we've got the past. We've got the present. We talked about the RC and CAG. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about where we're going. Commander is potentially the biggest format in all of Magic the Gathering right now.
Yep.
Sheldon, it's a huge honor to be a member of the Rules Committee, a huge honor to be the godfather of the format. Where is Commander going? What is the future of this format?
Well, since Commander really has become so popular, I don't think we need to spend as much time on acquisition, of bringing new players in. I think that inertia is going to take care of, or momentum is going to take care of that. Like, more people are going to love it, they're going to bring their friends in, they're going to bring their friends in, and so forth. So what's the future of Commander? What's the future of the RC? I'd really like us to provide more value-added service to the community. Like, what can we do when we're not spending our time getting people to play the game? Well, we're doing things that make your experience better, that help you, like with some resources, which I think Gavin is going to talk a little bit about, but to get things so that you have even more from us than we've been giving you before. We want you to have better games, to have the games that you want. You know, the best Commander games are with people that you're in sync with. So if we can, help provide you the tools to find those games, we'd love to do that. And we want to go forward with things like diversity initiatives and geographical initiatives. We're a little stovepiped into North America right now. So I want us to move out into the world and find representation not just from here, but from everywhere, and really make Commander look like the people that play Commander.
You mentioned Gavin would have some things to say.
Yeah.
Gavin, take us through to expand on what Sheldon was saying about value-added services.
So I think if Sheldon is the chairman of the Commander board, the first among equals, as it were, I guess I'm the CTO. I'm the tinker, the tooler. So we, trying to come up with things that we can do to help the community. We currently estimate that less than 1% of the people who have ever played Commander have ever been to the Commander website, have ever read the rules on the site.
And that's after the GeoCities one that may or may not have loaded the ban list, that may or may not have come after a set was released way back when.
It's not my skill set, but working with teams to build out tooling online that people can use to communicate, to find other players, find a play group. So we have the Discord, for example. We've got LFG groups where you can go in and do that, but providing more active tooling where you can find not just people who want to play, people who want to play the game that you want to play.
Yeah.
Making it easy to identify, to find your clade, to find your tribe, to find your people. So providing that kind of tooling. Really, you sort of talked about how the lots of people play. We don't need to make it, we don't need more nodes in this graph, as we would say in the math world. What we need is more edges. We need more connections between people. We want to find people, they can play more games quickly, more enjoyably, first time, being confident in that, and giving them both technical tools, like websites, Discord, but conversational tools, linguistic tools, language tools that we can, here is a set of words you can use to quickly communicate what your deck wants to do and what kind of opponents you want. CDH, is a community that has self-identified with linguistic tools that they have a crystal clear social contract that can be quickly and efficiently communicated.
Absolutely.
It's one small part of Commander, but it would be fabulous if we could have the same kind of crystal clear communication among other groups so that those games form quickly and are more fun.
Yeah, have battlecruiser language.
Battlecruiser language,
Yeah.
For all its strengths and weaknesses, MTGO was a growth area for Commander, and we learned a lot from that, its needs and the language that was used to communicate quickly. What are you looking for from a game? Was it ideal? No. Was it great? Maybe not. But we did learn, so that's the future.
Yeah, and the future, I think the future is, I hope, even more accessibility to us, and I think we can use those digital tools. You'll always find one of us. You'll always find one of the RC in the Format Philosophy channel on the Discord server. Like we're just there. So we want to break down those barriers to get rid of the ivory tower idea. We're not shadowy, distant figures. Although we do have secret meetings.
We do. But I guess now they're not really
They're less
secret because
secret
we
now,
told
yeah,
everybody about them.
Yeah.
You can ping us on Discord to chat. Always streaming on Twitch. Come join the chat and stream with us. Watch those games, chat, answer questions. That's what we're there for. So embracing new technologies, embracing new communities, more edges on the graph, more games being played.
So when I think of embracing new technologies and people on the rules committee, Olivia, the past couple years have been pretty gangbusters for you in terms of growing your platform as a streamer, doing webcam magic. Where do you see Commander going, and how does what you do play into that?
Yeah, I mean, starting to stream games back in 2019, even before COVID, was mainly out of selfish greed of wanting to play with my friends, because we had been doing webcam Commander because we all had ended up moving. So we're like, listen, I can stick a webcam on a couple, wooden spoons, duct tape it down, and cantilever it in the table of books and point it at a battlefield. I'll just tell you what things are. We know we're not going to cheat. We're all friends. And moving that through Twitch and then starting to be like, well, we have fun. Maybe people will watch us. That was a very interesting way to kind of get a community, get a sense of the way people play, and start, having games with people I've never met before, new friends. So the technology expansion makes it nice. There is no more, if you don't want, anxiety of going to an LGS or being geographically isolated from other players. If that's not accessible to you, you can get a relatively cheap web camera, some masking or duct tape, and find a couple things to, position it with that don't cost a lot of money that you may already have in your house, and be able to play and be able to find other people on Discord, on Spelltable, over the internet. You can organize games or use some, webcams or sharing software. So being able to open it up, it means that it doesn't have to necessarily be dictated by your location, your space, other accessibility concerns, that you can still enjoy this game with other people. So helping facilitate that transition for folks, making things easier to connect with other players, to have the wherewithal, the information you might need to foster a good play experience online, because obviously something like, I don't know, Rise of the Dark Realms, where you're bringing out everybody's creatures from all graveyards and you happen to be spread across the country, becomes a little difficult online.
Usually the game ends after that anyway, so.
Yeah.
I would never. It's good for us to be able to help people make that transition, find games, find other ways to connect with players that don't just mean being in a physical location together. So I think that's a really good spot for us to be in, helping people do that you don't have to come to an event to enjoy Commander, to enjoy it, with strangers, with new friends, with old friends, whatever that may be. We want that to still be something that we can help with in the future.
Yeah, and if you all haven't tried Spelltable out yet, definitely go give it a try. It's an awesome way to just play Magic.
Very
Anyone
good.
around the world, anytime, right? I've been on your stream before.
Yep.
And you live in Florida, I live in Seattle.
Yep.
No problem, right?
Yeah, I don't think, and I don't think we can undervalue the community building that happens with the online tools, because there's a community in itself that kind of floats between a bunch of streams. The
You're
bus
welcome.
got started here, but you'll see the same names. I go visit some stream, and then that whole list of names, there they are. And that strengthens us as we come together.
And then DeQuan, just to round things out a little bit, where do you see Commander going in the future? What's your perspective, someone on the keg?
You know, honestly, I think to Sheldon's point, we're largely in a maintenance phase. You know, where we've done all the acquisition, there's all these people, and now it's like, how do we make this pleasant for the maximum number of people? Because we're still seeing tons of new faces. So it's like, how do we make it better for creators to talk to an audience, right? Is there a way that we've learned that's good to present things? Or, you know, do we need to have extra eyes on that? A lot of you probably still go to game stores and play people there. It's, how do we make it easier for store owners to manage their communities, right? Are there things that come up that I can help them with potentially? Like, secretly, another secret thing, I'm still an admin on one of the largest retail groups on Facebook. And there's a lot of stuff that comes through that it's just taking the time to say, okay, yeah, this has come up before, this is how you can deal with this situation. So when the next person shows up, it's more welcoming, it's more friendly. Like, there can be a dispute and nobody has to leave upset, and then they lose a customer, and potentially people lose friends and potential players, right? So that's where I'm gonna be spending more of my time, is just like the maintenance part of all that. Like, how do we make this better for everybody now that you're here? Because, you know, we don't need to worry about, there's going to be plenty of Commander products bringing people in, right? Everybody wants to play, we all want the newest thing. It's just how do we make it as pleasant as possible going forward from a different angle?
Awesome, thank you so much, DeQuan. Okay, so we're gonna open it for questions here in just a second. So we've got a mic set up right here. If you wanna all order lined up behind there, nice orderly fashion, that would be fantastic. And who has a question? I've got 2 questions to kind of kick things off with though, so while y'all are getting lined up and heading over there.
By the way, I apologize for sounding like I'm 12. I've been losing my voice this weekend. I just realized I probably sound awful.
Yeah, it's Sunday, Sunday afternoon. We've all been talking to a lot of you. And thanks to all of you so much who have come and talked with us over the weekend too.
Yeah.
A lot of great conversations haven't had.
Yeah.
So 2 things I want to ask. We'll see how many people get out of line after I ask these questions, because they're what they're going to ask anyway. First question I have is, let's talk about Rule Zero. So something you implemented a couple of years ago. You started talking more about it a couple of years ago. Now it's pretty common parlance in the command zone and the free play areas. How do you feel Rule Zero is going? Gavin, you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the push to sort of say, hey, look, let's get people to talk. Like, that we want people to be social. You can't have rules for social. You can have agreement. That started to boil 3, 4, or 5 years ago now, and it honestly took off better than we'd ever hoped. It has. It's not to say it's easy. It's not to say it's automatic. It's to say it's working. That people talk. The concept that you sit down at a table and say, what do you want to do? You know, and you had actually a really cool thing that I wanted to kick over to about that I think is sort of, an important point about how it's built.
I personally have been of the thought that the social contract and Rule Zero are 2 actual different conversations that routinely get conflated into one. The social contracts discussion you might want to have at the beginning of a game of what kind of experience are we all looking for, just kind of give a really brief overview. It's Selesnya tokens. That's as deep as I need to go. Having that conversation of what kind of game experience you're looking for is different from saying the Rule Zero, do you guys mind if I play Nahiri's Commander? Do you mind if I have something that is a, not a proxy, but like, I have a couple uncards in this deck. They're really fun. They're not, dexterity or anything like that. They're just flavorful inclusions. That those are 2 different things. And that Rule Zero kind of starts at game 2. Let your first game with a new pod be, hey, let's stick with the rules. Everybody's on the same page. We're on the level footing. Now that we kind of have, after game 1, we figured out where everybody is, what kind of stuff we like. Are you guys cool if we, tweak the rules just a little bit? I think that is something that people can understand is a slight divergence, and it's not, Rule Zero isn't just everything. There are facets to it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think we've gotten, and I've seen conversations from some groups where you're right. They try to make it the all-encompassing thing, right? Like, we're going to solve all of our problems from this one conversation. And so, like, no, that's not realistic, right? It's, hey, if you decide to break the rules, let's have a conversation about it.
Yep.
But if, like you're saying, do we want to play a 10-turn game? Do we want to play bigger creatures or whatever? Like, that's a whole different thing.
Yep.
Because we're not changing the rules to do this.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Well,
go ahead,
one bit of trivia that's amusing is that some of this conflation is my fault, because the term Rule Zero comes from 2 different places. One, the term Rule Zero has been used in the role-playing game community for 20, 30 years. About like the Rule Zero in the Dungeons & Dragons book or whatever, where they're playing Fate or whatever it is Dungeon Master says it's legal, it's legal. But also, when we built that old GeoCities website, that, whatever, the old black text on white, background that served us well. I will say it served us well, but it was pretty Spartan. We had the rules that we'd laid out, and then one day I was like, I want to promote this concept that if you, that don't be a jerk. Not the word I used, but don't be a jerk. That this is important, that you should talk to people. So I actually made it rule 0 on the webpage. It was like, because programmers love to count from 0. We don't count from 1, we count from 0. So I put rule 0 as this idea, and it kind of took those two concepts of anything's legal if you allow it, and don't be a jerk and talk to people about what they want. And that's why rule 0 is used for both. It's trivia.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the insight on rule 0. And then one more question before we get to the audience questions, just really quick. In the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of fast mana, especially treasures, Dockside Extortionist, things like that happening. Curious how the rules committee weighs in on that right now. Where are you at on Sheldon on fast mana cards like Dockside?
I think the biggest anxiety in a Commander game is time pressure, and I think the most important factor when you're talking about the game is what turn you expect it to end on. So fast mana creates the potentially problematic thing that games are going to end a lot more quickly than you desire. Problematically for us, you can't just ban fast mana, right? We don't want to take all your favorite 2-mana rocks or your Simian Spirit Guides away from you. So it's an anxiety that I know that you have, and we share it. Like, we want Commander games to be able to be enjoyed and played at a pace where you're not necessarily constantly under pressure. So I think the solution, of course, is better 3-mana rocks that do cool things.
I'll get working on this. Sounds like I got some cards to make. Well, on that note, let's turn over to questions here. We've got a great queue of questions. I want to try and get through as many of them as we can. Hopefully we can get through them all. Let's take this first question here. Please say your name and what your question is.
Hi, my name is Sahil. I was wondering, well, number one, what is your personal least favorite card that is legal in Commander currently?
This is the least favorite card in Commander?
Yes.
All right, well, I'll kick it off right here. Just go around the horn really fast. Least favorite card in Commander?
Oh, mine's easy. Rift the Awakener. It was the first Commander deck I built around, and literally still have that deck today. And it was actually the only Commander deck I had up until...
Least favorite.
Oh, least favorite. Well, that's
I
way
was
worse.
like, wow, Rift
All right,
the
I'm done.
Awakener.
I want to talk about the awesome
The
card.
Scourge of Commander, Rift the Awakener.
No,
I
actually know this answer. It's my least favorite card in Magic altogether, and it's Humility. I don't like anything that card does. It slows every game down.
Let's go.
When I was a competitive 60 card player, like every rules issue was terrible. You had to know about layers, and just terrible. Like nothing I like about that card.
Ooh, least.
Oh, y'all get it. My people.
Least favorite. Ooh, I would say anything that takes my stuff away from me.
No, fair.
I don't like any of my stuff getting stolen, so I don't have necessarily a particular. You know what? Let me walk that back. I can't stand old Gnawbone. Why did you do this to me? Why is green making treasures? Why is green making treasures? Personally, the flavor just doesn't hit, but if people like it, Godspeed. I can't stand it.
Next answer, please.
Ristic Study. It's not. I hate that card. I will attack whoever has a Ristic Study unless someone doesn't pay, and then I attack them.
Nice.
Fair.
Who here pays the one?
Just kidding, I don't.
Or
No
the
chance.
2.
Yeah.
Or the 2.
I've never paid the 2.
Since DeQuan and I have been such friends for such a long time, I'm going to add to his humility with opalescence.
Oh, guys, okay.
Because the combination of the two have created so many headaches for so many judges and players so long.
True story, how many times do you have people ask you humility questions as a judge? Like, what if?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
Yep. Hello. Can you say your name and the question, please?
Hello, my name is Robert.
Hi.
So, over the years, I've seen the Commander format expand over the years and get larger, but I feel like the prices of product has gone way out of hand. I feel like there's no MSRP anymore. LGSs are getting undercut by Amazon and other online providers. And I know you can't fix the secondary market, that's kind of wild, but reining in product and making it a little bit less confusing for the player base, and also to keep track of what product is coming out and how much it actually costs, because it's just been inflating at this incredibly accelerating pace. Is there any plans for that?
I'll just say there, I mean, the rules committee has nothing to do with the creation of products, or very little besides looking at hard files and giving feedback. So I'm happy to talk with you about that after the panel if you'd like, but nothing here for these folks to say right now.
Yeah, and I'll say if you want to talk about some stuff from the retail perspective, feel free to find me, and I can maybe give you some input on that. But it's not necessarily related to. We'd have no input on that. I just know from experience of dealing with other retailers some things that might help you.
So thank you very much for the question.
Yeah.
My name's River.
For anyone in line, please get really close to the mic.
My name's River.
There you go.
In recent years, there's been a very large increase in product and the amount of legendary creatures specifically in all the products. Has there been any consideration in reinstating the banned as commander ban list?
Right, so the question is, there used to be banned as commander, where certain commanders were banned. You could not have Kakusho as your commander, for example, but you could play it in your 99. Have you looked into that at all, Sheldon?
Yeah, we actually we did a study, and Jim LePage, Charlotte Sable, and Rachel Weeks wrote a paper on it. And then we evaluated what they had to say in their paper, and the short version of that is the juice isn't worth the squeeze, as Josh Lee Kwai would say. It's just making a format level rule for such a small number of cards isn't the way you want to go. I mean, it's cards. I'm not sure where the tipping point is, and we certainly talked about this as we evaluated their paper. How many would be necessary, problematic in the command zone, but not in the command zone to really take action? I'm not sure, but we're not really close yet.
Anyone else have anything to say on that? Gavin, Olivia, DeQuan?
I mean, I think it's, and I want to be careful not to suggest that this is a solution to all problems, because it's not. But it is one thing, like what we get by reintroducing Banned Commander is that you can use the card in your deck, not as a commander. And for most of those cards, those are things that if you just say to other people, does anybody mind if I put this in my deck? And a lot of the time, the answer is going to be yes if you're doing interesting things with it, and no if you're doing boring things with it. And I don't think putting it, the extra templating, the extra rule, gives that much more freedom over just saying, hey, I want to play this card in my deck.
I actually think we'd end up with more banned cards.
No.
So you propose Rule 0 as a potential way to walk down for this?
Well, yeah, it's, once you've built up that trust that you're going to use it in an interesting way, that people will be happy to let you do it. And us adding, the additional rule where it's like, yes, you can, you can't. It's not super complex. I know one of the objections that people make about, is that when we say, that, it's too complex. We're not saying that people can't understand this. We're just saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
They are. Remember, everyone here is in the top 1% of the top 1% of the most invested players in Commander. All right, so what we want to do is have the rules be as simple as possible for the introductory 90%. And it doesn't add anything for them, and we don't think you need it.
Awesome, thank you very much for your question. Let's go on to the next question here and try and get through as many as we can in the remaining time we have.
Hi, I'm Joe. So I have a question regarding playing casually with an odd number of people. So for example, like 3s and 5s. One thing that I've been curious about for a while mechanically is if you could potentially add a layer on top that would be a roll or potentially a hidden roll mechanic to help facilitate that. So like very frequently when people come over, if there are 5 of us, 4 of us will like Commander, and the 5th person is just there to say hi because he's our best friend, right? But we'll play a different game because it accommodates 5 people just more easily. And I was wondering if there was a better way to like round out those numbers
Yes, the question is for 3s and 5s, 4 is the sweet spot for Commander. For 3s and 5s, what do you all do when you play to try and make it work with 3 or 5 players? DeQuan, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, again, this is from like the whole retail thing, because you're going to get awkward numbers of people that want to play. So a lot of times is you can have variance in your games, where some of us like to play plane chase stuff. That's a little bit different, right? And that adds an aspect. One of the things I did too is we played games like Bang and some of those other games, like where you give people secret roles, and maybe it's you eliminate your people first, right? So your game's still not taking that extra hour because you added that extra person. You still have an end game, and everybody's trying to figure out, okay, well, why are you always attacking this person, right?
Yeah.
So you can do stuff like that to speed your games up, so you can accommodate that 5th or that 6th person, depending on how many people are there in your playgroup.
I've seen a lot of secret partners for higher number games.
Yeah.
What we used to do at like when I'd have Commander Nights at my place in Seattle is if we had a pot of 5, the 2 people sitting next to you were your allies, and the 2 people across from you were your enemies.
Star is the best.
Yeah, stars. Yeah. So it was a really interesting way because the person next to you doesn't want to attack this person, but you do. They want to come after you. So all of a sudden, there's weird politics that kind of directs your attacks a little bit more. So it's not this complete free-for-all. You have a little bit more structure, and you can still have enough people in the game.
And there are infinite variants you can play.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't have to stick to just the same rules if you have an awkward number of people, because you're trying to also take in time considerations.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Michael. My question is to challenge something, Gavin, you said earlier, which is that you can't make rules for social events, and I feel like that's not true. We have like social communities that have guidelines, and if we agree Commander is a social game, we have mechanical rules of what is Commander. Have there been conversations of what are the social rules of Commander? Like, this is absolutely banned speech. If anyone says this, out the door. Even if obviously we all agree we're all good people, it's sort of a more explicit stance the Rules Committee would take on this versus an implicit understand, like you say, Rule 0s don't be a jerk. I guess my main question is, has there been explicit conversations of codifying don't be a jerk by the Rules Committee?
I didn't hear
I mean,
the question.
like, you'll know if somebody's being a jerk? I mean...
So the question, Sheldon said he didn't hear the question. The question is basically, in a social situation, Rule 0 you said was don't be a jerk for a long time, kind of a core of the format. Can you codify that, or can we have that be louder in the format in various ways? Are there ways we can help make sure that it's a social event, and Rule 0, our current Rule 0 is always like talk with your people, figure out what you're trying to do.
Sure.
Can we make it so there are some just social, this is how Commander should be style things written in rules?
I mean, yes, that's generally possible, but in broad terms, I think what the biggest weapon in your arsenal here is the ability to say no. Yep. The ability to when you see behavior that you yourself don't want to sit at a table with, to be able to walk away. And I'm a firm believer that no game is better than a bad game. Like we all have limited amounts of leisure time in our lives, right? Yeah. And we want to spend it, we want to amplify our enjoyment, not decrease it. I think rough guidelines maybe on what are antisocial behaviors, but really hardline ones, making a checklist, probably not possible.
Thank you very much for the question. I appreciate it. We have time for 1, maybe 2 questions. We'll see here.
My name is Jordan, and I was just wondering, over the last couple of Magic sets that have come out, the general power level has gone up. Is there any consideration from the Rules Committee to unban some previously banned cards for their power level?
So the note is, have there been any recent considerations to unban cards from the Rules Committee?
Say again?
Have there been recent considerations to unban cards from the Rules Committee, given that the recent sets have been going up in power?
I mean, we do an exercise every meeting, every Rules Committee meeting, of arguing to unban a card, and that's kind of how Worldfire got unbanned. Like it was really the choice. We had argued a number of them over the years, and we've been doing it 4 or 5 years now, right? Yep. And Gavin said, "Let's talk about Worldfire this time." And
we make cases. We suggest which cards do we think, would be the most fun to unban. Which ones will increase the fun of the games that are being played, or are not pulling their weight on the list. Right. So there are some cards where it's like, look, give people a chance to use these. They'll use them wisely. Painter's Servant is an example. Like, this is a card that we unbanned so people could use it. Worldfire is a card that we unbanned mostly because we didn't think anybody would use it. Now, to be clear, I have a deck that has Worldfire in it. All right. Like, I have an Avacyn deck that plays Jokel Hops and Worldfire, and just like the world is going to end with a mushroom cloud.
You're a monster.
They just cheered for that. I thought these were my people like 20 minutes ago. Like what happened?
I've got 2 fans, and that's all I need. But yeah, we do talk about it, and sometimes we're just like, this can come off.
Yeah.
So consideration, yes.
There's definitely like during meetings, or people will just, CAG members will just bring up, why is this still banned? Yeah. And we will absolutely discuss that to great length. Sometimes we come to the determination.
Derail a meeting?
Absolutely derail a meeting. But they definitely get discussed. It is something that does get revisited frequently.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for the question. Appreciate it. That is all the time we have for questions today. But I will say, we're all up here. We're going to come down here in just a moment. Yeah. So if you have questions, you want to come talk to us, please come reach out to us. Yeah. And we'll be here the rest of the day. Thank you all so much for watching the panel. Thank you for coming to Magic 30. And can we get a big hand for all of our guests right here? All right, excellent.
And thank you for playing.
Yeah.